So here on the channel, we look at the best crypto traders, the people with the top track records, look at their portfolios, look at what they're currently holding, and how they think that these tokens are going to get them to billions of dollars, literally by holding the right coins. Murad is someone we talk about quite a bit. He is extremely bullish on the meme coin supercycle and this token in particular, the SPX6900. He essentially likens it to the new Bitcoin, and he thinks I'm going to show you some of his projections for it. It's going to go through the stratosphere and be multi-cycle, meaning not just this exponential year, but in 3 and 4 and 12 and 20 years time, it being still around and possibly in the trillions of dollars of market cap. Now, you can see we've had a nice bounce on SPX. The tokens that are bouncing the hardest, even though market sentiment is not great at the moment, are the ones to watch out for, because when market sentiment turns excellent, it's just like throwing extra gas on the fire, and this could be even stronger. But a lovely 40% bounce, and even today you can see it's up from 42 cents, it hit the 51 cents. But if you know SPX6900, there is no chart is their motto. And let's get into this, because I'm just going to get in. I'm not even going to give you my thoughts until the end. Let me just keep it factual and through the lens of Murad. Murad says SPX6900 will go to $100 billion this cycle, which would be the biggest meme coin in history. Here he says, soon you'll wake up to a news headline. SPX6900 has reached a $128 billion market capitalization. And you'll ask yourself, the boys on Twitter were talking about this every single day. How did I miss this? That's why I want to make this video for you. Just so you get to choose if you want to ride this train or not, but as long as it's a conscious choice and not because you didn't hear about it. Murad says, people called me a schizo when I called Bitcoin to $100 trillion plus market cap in 2018. Of course, it's not at $100 trillion plus market cap, but everyone, at least including the USA and a lot of nation states, do believe it's going to cross into the $100 trillion plus level over the next decade or two. He says now it's commonplace consensus. But now Murad has a new call. This is February 2025. He's calling SPX6900, this meme coin, to a $1 trillion plus market cap. Now, once again, this doesn't necessarily mean in this cycle, but he thinks in the lifetime of SPX6900, it will cross a $1 trillion market cap. And if you thought that's crazy, wait for this next one. John Klein says he bought his first bag of SPX6900, tagged Murad, and Murad replied saying, multiple trillions are possible for this coin. Emphasis on possible, but Murad has literally no ceiling for how high he thinks this token can go. And as I said here on the channel, we're not just tracking anybody. We're not just being like, throw a dart at a random person on Twitter and buy what they want to buy. We want the people who have the best track records and therefore know something about the market, know something about investing that we don't. And Murad knows. He was super bullish on Bitcoin and bull posting Bitcoin. If you search him talking about BTC or Bitcoin from Murad anytime before 2019, when Bitcoin's price was literally $3,000, you can scroll back and you can see, just like his bull posting now about SPX6900, he was non-stop bull posting about Bitcoin and how it is really the technology of the future, allowing people to take back command of their finances away from traditional finance back in 2018 and even before that. And even more recently, he's turned $200,000 into $14.7 million with SPX6900. So he knows what he's talking about. He's got an excellent track record. And so for me, it's worth listening to his thesis, especially if it's got the upside of multiple trillions. Now, Maddox, who is a strong SPX6900 bull poster on Twitter, says, look deeply into SPX6900. Do whatever you need to, but make sure you study it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you remember this guy, Da Vinci Jeremy, has a famous clip, which is this one, where he was talking, and look at the date here, 2013. Bitcoin was about $25 a token, I believe. And he was talking about, please, everyone, just buy $1 of Bitcoin. That's all he's asking people to do, just buy $1. It's like, you're really going to regret it if you don't. Now, I'm not saying this is the exact point we're at when it comes to SPX6900, but there's a chance. And even if there's a 10% chance that this is the point we're at, you're probably going to want to do your research. And if you don't, that's also totally fine. Maddox also said 10 years ago, if people spent at least 10 hours researching Bitcoin, it's likely they would have invested and changed their life forever. Now they have a second chance. Put that minimum 10 hours into researching this token, SPX6900, and you will change your life forever. Strong. It says will right here. And what I like to focus on, guys, Gordon here tweeted this out. It says, point of view, you held the right meme coins. This is real life money. If you actually can nail the right meme coin, because I don't know about you, but I believe there's going to be meme coins that cross the $100 billion mark, whether it's SPX or something else. If you can find it, and you can stack it in your portfolio and have the conviction to hold it through the 70% pullbacks, you can literally go and buy and do whatever you want in the real world. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, so now we've got $20 million in our portfolio. It's real money. This could be a generational opportunity to really live life on your terms. And so I tweeted out because I'm like, yeah, this is probably worth at least 3 or 4 hours of my time to actually investigate if I want to get more of this token. So I tweeted out, what resources does the SPX6900 community show people for them to get it? Because there's all these tweets out there being like, oh, my friend finally got it. Oh, my friend was researching this for 10 hours and then he got it and now he's full ported $1 million of SPX. I'm like, well, what are the best videos, best articles, and best docs for people having that, oh, now I've got it moment, just like they did with Bitcoin back in 2013 to 2018. And so in this video, I want to go through the strongest assets that I was sent and found by myself, starting with this one here. This is the big overview on the thesis, and then we're going to get more and more specific into why SPX6900 could be that front-running coin. So Murad says, every generation has its own barbell strategy. Conservative assets and assets with more upside. Our generation's barbell strategy is Bitcoin and then cult meme coins. You can see the boomers had bonds was the low risk asset, and then the exotic high risk returns where the people before them, I don't actually know what that generation was called, was like, oh no, the S&P 500 is too risky, stick with bonds, the nice 3 to 4% a year, that 10, 11% a year is crazy. Gen X then was like, okay, well, S&P 500, we know we can depend on, it's been good for 40 years, it's given us our 10, 11%, Bitcoin's crazy, even though it's giving 60% a year, there's too much risk involved. Now, millennials and Gen Z, we have Bitcoin giving us about the 30 to 60% returns a year. But you know what? That's getting a little bit boring because people don't have that much money to put in. If you have $10,000 to put in and now you've got, I don't know, $16,000 and then $26,000. And it's like, okay, but at what point are you going to buy a house, which is on average $1.5 million? You're going to be a long way from it. They need the moonshots, the higher risk exotic returns category, which is now cult meme coins. Emphasis on cult and not just meme coins. Murad says, assets are getting increasingly valued based on mimetic properties. Meme coins are the next step in this evolution, and their adoption will be faster than that of any other asset class. And you can see the risk curve going up here, all the way down to meme coins, because in order to out-earn monetary inflation, you need to be earning more than 14% on your money every single year. And all of these, maybe tech stocks might be the start of the green zone. Everything under that is not going to get you ahead in life. The treadmill is moving too fast and you're not making progress. And people intuitively will be feeling this and then looking for riskier and riskier assets to really just have to gamble in order to get ahead in life. But not all gambles are equal. Murad thinks that SPX and Giga are the right gambles to make because just like how people buy blue chip stocks like Apple, Nvidia, and Tesla, and no one touches the penny stocks, the crypto market hasn't reached that equilibrium yet, and people are gambling on these brand new shiny objects, which are just meme coins on pump fun, and losing a lot of money. But once enough people get hurt, and once people are like, wow, that's actually not the best way, most sustainable way, or trustworthy way to be able to make money, they're going to be like, okay, well, what's left? What's risky enough for us to be able to move ahead in life, but also not going to rug pull us and take all of our money within 3 seconds of actually buying into the token. And Murad says you want to look for tokens that are more than a year old, so you know they're not going to rug pull you, can become very big, otherwise you're not going to make any money, survived multiple 70% drops because all the paper hands, all the people who don't believe in the thesis are now sold and out and on the sidelines, and all their tokens are now in the hands of people who then believe in the mission and the thesis, which allows tokens to go into crazy billions, tens of billions of dollars of market cap. Hold account growing every week. You want this community to be growing bigger and bigger. Have people hustling hard for free. Of course, that's explains itself. Communities are more active than ever. You don't want activity in the communities going down. You want it going up because therefore you get more people hearing about the token and then onboarding, and then use bubble maps and hold a scan to make sure the distribution isn't stacked with a few big whales who can dump on the market really quickly. And these top tokens, the ones that fulfill that criteria, will be at the top of the meme coin pyramid. the mission movements, and the cults, which Murad says is only going to be about 25 tokens that make it long term. And if you don't really believe in the thesis of like, oh my God, cults are going to make people really rich and be incredible opportunities because there's maybe no utility or something like that, have a look at the past cults. So SPX combines the best of Bitcoin, GME, S&P 500, Dogecoin, SHIB, XRP, and Cardano into a single coin to be the ultimate mimetic machine of this cycle. Will you stop trading and believing in something? You have to think back, and a few posts pointed this out, which we're going to go through as well. Bitcoin technically still is, but started as a meme coin. It's just based on belief. It's based on a PvE environment, which is player versus environment, not player versus player, where everybody wanted to exit the world of inflation and into Bitcoin. And 10 years ago, it was way more of a gamble than it is now. GameStop, again, they were trying to basically liquidate Wall Street and everyone who was trying to short the stock that had a lot of nostalgia in a lot of people's hearts. Doge, I mean, that's the most meme coin out of all the meme coins. SHIB as well. These things hit almost $100 billion market cap. So to think you can't do that again in a super cycle is a bit delusional. XRP, I mean, this talks about utility nonstop. But if you look at what is driving the price of XRP, it's the die-hard belief in the actual fans who will not hear a negative thing about XRP. And of course, you got something like ADA, which, okay, what does ADA do? What is their actual utility? Well, I don't know if you can name something. I can't. I'm not that well versed in it. But it's like, okay, it's essentially a cult following with a strong belief in the mission. So let's have a look at SPX and what their mission is and why this specific token could be the one that crosses the trillion, could be the one that crosses the $100 billion market cap first. Murad says, SPX is the chosen one this cycle. It's the number one in growth rates, the number one in decentralization, the number one in holder and whale loyalty, and then number one in mean and median holder investment value. Believe in something. And you can see here, this was on the Feb 24th, while everything else is crashing in terms of holder growth and price at this point as well. But SPX, excluding the base chain, was growing by 4% in holders. So as it was dropping in price, more people are buying, where all these other tokens, say Chill Guy, for example, had 30% of its holders sell because they're not real strong diamond hand believers. On top of the data, they have the best mimetic narrative, flipping the stock market, flipping the S&P 500. And you hear them satirically be like, 6,900 is greater than 500 because the S&P 500 is smaller and therefore this is a better place to put your money. It's the most interesting narrative and it gets funnier the higher it goes. And just like Bitcoin was, Murad says the SPX6900 is the definitive ultra player versus environment coin where everyone inside the token wins and the enemy isn't other meme coins, so to speak, but it's traditional finance. It's literally the stock market, the S&P 500. And he says it's a cultural critique being collectively and continuously written by 100,000 plus holders, which is a lot of holders, soon to be millions, because you can see it's growing every single day, of mysterious figures known only as the Eons. The transition from PvP to PvE has already begun. Immense amount of wealth will flow into the SPX 6900. This is looking at Murad and all this data that they break down, basically looking at how decentralized it is and how many holders have more than $1,000 worth of the token and therefore actual skin in the game and interest in it. Because if you have $50 worth of the token, you don't really care. If you have $1,000 worth of the token, you might even bull post it on Twitter. And Murad says to these holder scan data, comparing all the other meme coins to, SPX 6900 has the biggest number of $1,000 plus holders and the highest percentage of $1,000 plus holders. This coin is going to trillions. It is also the most decentralized meme coin according to HolderScan. We don't have to go through all this data. We've got a bit coming up still, but this is why if you think that the thesis of meme coins are really the youth and the Gen Z and the millennials, exotic, high risk, high return asset class, this is why the SPX 6900 might be the number one performer out of all of them. And to be honest, I'm looking through this data and it's like, well, it's pointing in the direction of SPX 6900. Murad says this is the single most important metric to measure diamond-handedness among meme coins. The percentage of holders that ever held more than $100,000 of the coin and are still holding more than 50% of their coins, therefore not selling their entire bag, especially when the price dips. Meme coins boil down to belief, and the most loyal believers will inherit the earth. You can see SPX wormhole on Solana, SPX on Ethereum, have the highest percentages of wallets still holding 50%, which are the whales, people who at one point held $100,000 of that token, or still hold $100,000 of that token. And then here, talking about whales that have never sold a single coin. Now, the SPX6900 was also the first meme that bridged from Ethereum to Base. They also wormholed into Solana, so you can trade on any of those three blockchains, which is pretty impressive that they've got the technical know-how to do that. Now, Maddox posted this cool tweet. I'm going to read you a little bit of it. He says, 10 years ago, a huge number of people made Bitcoin their whole identity and full ported BTC. Today, a huge number of people are making SPX6900 their whole identity and full porting SPX. Every decade or so, people disillusioned by the lack of prospects in their life collectively express a need for an alternative asset to invest in, just like we talked about looking at the Gen Z and millennials. In order to get ahead, they need to be able to gamble. One that defies the norms of traditional finance, one that lights a path to financial freedom. Now, Tom Bout had this amazing thread on SPX6900, which I'm going to go through in the highlights with you, but I highly recommend coming over, making sure I follow him back. Look at that. He's already following me. Kind of a big deal in this space, everybody. But this is a very strong thread, so if you want to go spend some more time on it, come through. He talks about exactly what we talk about. The Zoomers are going to be investing in meme coins. It's their asset of choice. The third wave belongs to meme coins. This is altcoins and Ethereum back in 2017. GameFi, DeFi, Metaverse back in 2021, and now we are in the super cycle of meme coins. Murad talks about how whatever token won in the third year always wins in the fourth year. Guess what outperformed in the third year? It was meme coins. He talks about how meme coins are a fraction of the size of altcoins, which have crazy amounts of unlocks coming due to their dilution schedule. He talks about all the macroeconomic factors that contribute to the meme coin super cycle. Basically, as inflation goes up, as AI comes for your jobs, as accelerating wealth and income inequality go up, a rising loneliness goes up because meme coins are cult. That's why it's bullish for meme coins. As few remaining ways to make it, as altcoins get hijacked by VCs and siphon all the money out, etc., etc. Every single one of these variables is bullish for meme coins. He talks about how there's cults, whether it be Marvel cults or shopping cults, gaming cults, even Tesla cults and tech cults. But the only cults, well, I mean, I guess this has stock up here, which you can see with GME and Tesla, that goes through the roof. The cult meme coins are the ones that people can invest in and also get extremely wealthy. He talks about the purity spectrum and how it was a fair launch and the dev sold and it stayed a long time under $10 million. How the bubble maps and the holder distribution is fair and equal. How PvE versus PvP meme coins, and it's in the PvE, the player versus environment, as we spoke about. He talks about how the graph doesn't matter. That's one of their motto. There is no chart. He says SPX6900 is essential in the grand scheme of things. He talks about how our ancestors stored value in land and gold, boomers in stocks, bonds, and funds, millennials in Bitcoin, and now Zoomers and Alpha, that's the newest generation apparently, in SPX6900. And there's a few more that you can come through. He compares it directly to the S&P 500 as well. But the most important chart out of all of this is how it needs to reach critical mass, just like Doge, just like SHIB, just like Pepe, potentially even WIF, hit critical mass and therefore outside of orbit and can continue to sustain themselves, getting bigger and bigger every cycle. SPX6900 needs to do the same thing. And Murad's broken down 3 factors that determine if something hits critical mass or not, which is the market cap. It needs to be obviously in the billions, potentially in the tens of billions to really sustain that sort of value. It needs to hit full market saturation. The holder count, talk about market saturation. It's at hundreds of thousands. It needs to creep up there into the high hundreds of thousands, into the millions, and therefore be really diversified. And it's really hard for it to go down unless everyone is selling. Versus if there's only 10 people holding the token, 1 people sell, the whole thing could absolutely tank. So to get 10% of people to sell their tokens when you've got 1 million people, that's a really hard thing to actually happen. So there's more sustainability in a token like that. And of course, I mean, this is what we're talking about, the distribution. The more people who are holding, the harder it is for the token to move down in price. Now, if you do like trading meme coins, highly recommend coming and checking out our Solana wallet. We will be expanding to Ethereum very soon as well. Archie is the fastest, most secure way to trade meme coins, all inside the Telegram app, so you can do it on your phone. And you can trade something like SPX6900, the wormhole of it, in Archie right now with 1 click of a button. So come and download Archie AI by going to archiebot.ai or clicking the link in the description. In fact, I can even link up the SPX6900 contract address on that link for you. So as soon as you click it, it'll go to the SPX6900 buy page where you can buy or sell or do whatever you want inside the app. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.